This song is dedicated to Mimi. We love you. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, full on his wonderful face, and the things of earth will go strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full on his wonderful face, and the things of earth will go strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Keep your eyes upon Jesus, and nobody else take his place. Then hour by hour you'll know his power, till at last you have run the great race. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full on his wonderful face, and the things of earth will go strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace.
Here we are at
Penny Ross. It's awesome, grand, majestic. Please don't take me.
Oh.
I've got to go and get another pair of shoes, brother. You'll go mad if I hold
The three women, my God, talking about shoe shopping. Oh look, she's coming for the first test. Sit down. Oh dear. Hey?
You forget, you see, now you've got your sister's shoes.
Where are the kangaroos and the bears? Are you taking it now?
Yeah! We made it to see Mimi! Yay! She's wonderful. His little camera shy, so great. Yay! There you go, Mimi.
Oh. I don't think I look nice.
Beautiful, Mimi.
I'll come over here.
Even the packet is excited about this. Cheers to me.
I send you all the best and lots of love and good wishes. All from Mimi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, all of you. What a lovely start to a funeral service. Amber and Rochelle there, what a beautiful piece. I've heard it sung many a time, but I've never heard it like that. Thank you so much. And thanks for the video clips there, they were very amusing as well. Put a smile on everyone's face. Welcome all of you, family and friends of Bonnie Agatha Mason. Here we come to remember and celebrate her life. We come from our own different perspectives and our own different memories. Some of these will be stirred up over the past few days and weeks, recalling all sorts, things that perhaps you thought you had forgotten, coming back to mind. I hope you were able to share those memories with someone else and say, oh, do you know what I just thought of? I remember that time when, and you're able to share and see that smile break out on someone else's face. Here we come in support of Bonnie's family. Bradley, we'll remember Bradley today. Twins, Rebecca and Kingsley. Do you still get called twins, Rebecca and Kingsley? It's never just Rebecca and Kingsley, it's just the twins, Rebecca and Kingsley. Always strikes me as a funny one, that. I visited a family. This is a bit of an aside. I visited a family a couple of months ago. They were twins. And I said, so who was born first? Who's the oldest? And they said, that's a difficult question. How would it be difficult? And they said, well, he was born first, but she's older than him. It's a good one. I should leave that with you. Just leave it with you. The births happened at the changing of the clocks. So the paperwork showed one was an hour earlier than the other, the wrong way round. So when I said, so who was born first, who's the eldest? You can see why it was difficult. Feel free to use that. Especially you twins. So here we are for family, for Bonnie's family, for grandchildren, twins again. Amber Rose and Rachel Ann. Here you'll be recalling, I'm quite sure, late husband Fred. Perhaps you always saw them in the same way as these twins. You always thought of them as one item, just Bonnie and Fred, or Fred and Bonnie. You always just thought of them and always saw them together. Even after his passing, still seeing her and almost seeing him with her. We do. So perhaps at a time like this today, you've got him in mind firmly as well, and that would be normal. And the siblings, of course, perhaps as you were looking through the old photo albums, remembering the siblings, Jeff, Buzz and Jack, all deceased, and I always think that's something very special when she was the last, Bonnie was the last, and that's the end of that generation, and so it goes, and so it passes on to the next generation. Remembering parents as well, perhaps remembering Bonnie when she was what we'd have called a lass, with her parents and siblings there, with parents Walter and Etty. Here we come to celebrate Bonnie's life, a good life, a long life, a happy life, and that makes it easier today. Not easy, but it makes it easier from here and from there, in our grief, to have this knowledge in our hearts that it was a good life. A long life, a happy life. We take some comfort from that. That is comforting. We come to celebrate her life, but of course there's still sadness, and of course there are still tears. As humans, we can do both. As humans, we can do both, and do both at the same time, in laughing and crying, laughter and tears. Others have spoken of this event, the loss of someone, the comfort of family and friends and neighbours. We've written about it for generations and for millennia. In one of these, the oldest pieces, The Lord's My Shepherd, about how a community and how people got through their time of difficulty. Martin's going to read that to us now. The Lord's My Shepherd. Thanks, Martin.
Bonnie particularly requested this psalm, and we actually found the copy that was in her wedding program. And so I'll read you that from her wedding program. The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want. He makes me down to lie in pastures green. He leadeth me the waters quiet by. My soul he doth restore again, and me to walk doth make within the path of righteousness, even for his known name's sake. Yea, though I walk through death's dark vale, yet will I fear none ill, for thou art with me, and thy rod and thy staff me comfort still. My table thou hast furnished in presence of my foes. My head thou dost with oil anoint, and my cup overflows. Goodness and mercy all my life shall surely follow me, and in God's house for evermore my dwelling place shall be. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I recognise that version. That's from the Scottish Psalter of 1650. Not that I was when I was around when they wrote it, but I recognise that version. It's the one that probably most people would have known of Bonnie's generation. It was the one that they would have been singing, rather than one read from Scripture. So here we come, recalling, remembering and sharing together, celebrating a life. The 12th of May, an important day for you all, marking the day of her birth when it all began, 1922. And of course, her 99 years. I hope this 12th of May you're going to party and celebrate what would have been her 100th. It's something to look forward to. And I kind of think she would expect you to party. Bonnie was one of 3 children to parents Walter and Etty, along with Jeff and Buzz and Jack. On the 12th of May, International Nurses Day. It's an interesting day for her to have been born. Celebrated around the world each year to mark the contribution that nurses have made to all our societies. Also the anniversary of Florence Nightingale, founder of modern nursing. You would recognise this, I know, each year in saying happy birthday to Bonnie and celebrating both that anniversary and also the one with Florence Nightingale. Bonnie from Inverell moved in early life to Sydney, which led to her working in so many of the hospitals there and in Queensland. If I had been asking Bonnie how she had met her husband Fred, in all likelihood I wouldn't have asked her how she had met Fred. I would have asked Bonnie, and which dance did you meet Fred at, Bonnie? Because that generation all met at a dance. If they didn't meet at the dance, if she said, no, we didn't meet at a dance, I'd have said, so which tennis club was it? And if they said, oh, it wasn't a tennis club either, I'd have said, oh, which youth group was it then? After that, I've got nothing. But that generation, it was one of these 3 that they mostly met, at least 95% of them. And this couple, Bonnie and Fred, met at a dance in Brisbane. Him possibly, I didn't hear, but him possibly in his army uniform. And there was, of course, the move to New Guinea, to Sydney, Blue Mountains, Wyoming, and a fair few moves in her life. You'll remember her love of cooking and baking, especially cakes. In 30 years of doing this, in every service where there have been grandchildren speaking, and I think I'm right in saying that, in every service, when grandchildren get up to speak about Gran, they'll speak about all the wonderful things and finally get onto the cooking and the baking. So that's especially noted in there for you too. The cooking and the baking, the cakes. Remember too her love of animals, her generosity in all ways. That's a beautiful thing to have exhibited before you, for you to watch on and see, to take note of and to learn from. Remember how she didn't like to see anyone or anything suffer. Typical nursing quality. in profession and in personality and character. She was considerate of all others at all times. Imagine being able to say that on a day like today. What a great thing to say from here. Always considerate of others at all times. You'll remember her pleasure in the likes of gardening, or fishing, or her travels around Australia with Fred, and then age 73, Bonnie driving around the UK with Kingsley for 6 months. Well, why not? You only live once. I heard about those travels, and I heard about the great time that was had by you all. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but so many royal events. I think there were 3 in all, royal events. How lucky the Queen was even to get to meet her. It's good to word it that way for a change, isn't it? She was looking forward to get her letter from Her Majesty. Remember her love of music, her love of classical music and opera. And I heard so many outside saying earlier on, and she would have loved that piece that you two had chosen, which is a bit of a blast from the past. So how she would have appreciated that. We come with various thoughts and memories from all over Australia, from our different areas that we met her and knew her. And we celebrate all of that together. Other family members are going to celebrate their memories now. There's a few of these. Kingsley, are you coming first? Right then. One of the twins.
Well, hi everybody. Thanks for coming along first and foremost. That was very good of you all to come. I'm going to start by recalling an age 9 memory where Mum said that I thought the area around Glencoe, often wondered if that's why we moved into Glencoe Avenue, but she's talking about a property around near Inverell. Absolutely magnificent, with the banks of the river edged with tall trees, willows and thick vegetation. The holes of water with sandy bottom had to be seen to be believed. Beautiful clear water, lovely and warm. It was something I could never forget. I never tired of looking at it. I could just sit for hours and watch the water flowing by. So basically Mum was always at her happiest when she was in the great outdoors. So it's no surprise that Mum loved the bush, and we'd go on many bushwalks around Springwood, a particular favourite being Martin's Lookout, and we'd go down to a fabulous clear sandy waterhole and go swimming. We'd then collect a lot of dead wood around the place and of course boil the billy. So that was a real entertainment, and but I have to say that though Mum had a high standard for morals and behaviours, every so often she would let her guard slip, much to the kids' amusement. Coming from a farm, she believed that cow pats were free to pick up anyway, and she had a big garden that needed regular fertilisation. So off we would walk down to the end of the road, this is about age 12, with our Hessian bags, and to a cow paddock owned by a local identity. He did not take too kindly to trespassers, and there were a number of occasions where we all had to run for it, dragging our sometimes heavy bags frantically, all of us laughing very loudly. Mum travelled around Australia twice with Dad after he retired. Sadly, it was all too brief because Dad passed away in 1991 at age 70. So I always felt that she missed out a little bit there. And of course, her oldest son and our brother Bradley passed away a short time later in 1995. And that was a bit of a double blow to Mum. But she really let it show, and she just forged straight ahead as she always did. Now, just need to share a couple of little stories with you. She went to school at Brodie's Plains up near Inverell, near where the farm was. It was one of those old rural schools that all the classes in one classroom, one building. And there was this colour poster of Franz Joseph Glacier on the wall of the school. And I was talking to her one day, and she said, "You know what? When I looked at that, and I said to myself, I don't think I'll ever get to see that in real life." So roll the clock forward, and Rebecca and I took Mum on a road tour of New Zealand because she always wanted to go. And one day we said to her we had organised a helicopter flight. And that was another first. She was captivated by that experience. And we all got out atop an expanse of snow on the mountain. And we said to Mum, "You're standing on top of Franz Josef Glacier." So that was a very poignant moment. Mum and I also drove all over the UK. And she went on a really great trip with Peter, who's speaking later, his mum, Margaret Eliasson. And it was the order of the day were castles, churches, events, Devonshire teas, quaint villages and pubs, Roman ruins, and bagpipes. So it was very memorable. And constant amusement when we'd pull into a caravan park because, of course, I had a state-of-the-art, dump of a combi. And we'd pull into a caravan park and people were trying to work out the relationship. What's going on with these two? So, but the highlight was going to Royal Ascot. Won't bore you with the details of how I got the tickets, but anyway, it was a special letter. And we managed to get into the Royal Enclosure in Ascot. So Mum was completely made up. And she had to dress to the nines. I wore a top hat and tails for the first and only ever time in my life. And so we arrived in the combi into the Royal Enclosure car park. And anyway, this finely dressed gentleman came over to us and he commented on what a fine combi we had. At that point, Mum just said, "Come in for a cup of tea." So we popped the roof, he came in and we had a cup of tea. And she often commented that was one of the highlights of the day at Ascot. We did have an excellent view of the back of the Queen's Head. We were seated 2 rows behind her. And then I did the unthinkable. It was a bit hot, so I took my hat off. So I'll sound the alarm, summon the yeoman. Crikeys. An ever so polite gent magically appeared and reminded me of the dress rules. And I looked at Mum and the face she was mortified. There's the Queen just there, I'm being told to put my hat back on. Anyway, it all ended in well because when we were coming down, she saw Princess Anne up close and personal and she was, that's good. And one day, just a story on Dad, he became, how can I put this delicately, he became a little amorous and Mum panicked in the traditional not in front of the kids situation, and she just grabbed something that was immediate to hand, which happened to be a pan, and she went to just give him a tap on the head, I think. Anyway, I can still hear the clang down the ears. And the look on Dad's face was absolutely priceless. And as soon as I heard the clang, it was, "Dinner's ready." So it was always a bit of fun happening around the place. I've got to now have to say that Mum dearly loved her nephew Harley and her niece Margaret, and would eagerly await their arrival whenever they came to visit. She was absolutely heartbroken when their mum and dad passed away, our Auntie Kath and Uncle Buzz. Mum was very close to her cousin Gwen, who was only a few months older than Mum, and they loved being together, talking, shopping and having cups of tea. Mum thought the absolute world of Elsie, and Rebecca and I would like to say a heartfelt thank you to Elsie for being such a big part of Mum's life. Mum was also very close to her cousin Irene and often talked about her. I'd like to thank my partner Laura Lee, my older sister Rebecca, by 10 minutes, thanks Mum. I always refer to her as the older sibling. And my brother-in-law Martin and my nieces Amber and Rochelle. The ongoing care of Mum, and she always let us know whenever we visited. That was all very greatly appreciated. Mum viewed Laura Lee as her own daughter, and they both loved each other to bits. Even after Mum took Laura Lee's mum Carol up the back garden and said, "If you think Kingsley wants to get married, he doesn't." Carol replied, "That's good because Laura Lee doesn't want marriage." So this again proves that mums are always right. 24 years after this conversation, Laura Lee and I are still engaged but not married. So this gem was also followed up by Mum telling Laura Lee's dad David he didn't know how to make a cup of tea. And she really loved Auntie, well, I won't say infamous, but the Auntie Susie. And she used to say whenever her name came up, that Auntie Susie, she's got oomph. So that was quite funny. But each time we visited Mum in the last years of her life, she wanted to know all the people she knew in Glencoe Avenue, along with the friends from overseas, and sometimes this took up half our time with her. Mum loved to reminisce, and sometimes a classic story would come out that I would file away for a future coffee with Roger from across the road. Maureen, Jeff, Joe, Franco, Jules, you will all come up in conversation. So, fellow Glencovians and overseas Poms, be very afraid. Bonnie was affectionately known as Mimi to Amber and Rochelle, in part because she believed it made her seem younger. Mimi was a loving and thoughtful grandma. She taught her twin granddaughters many skills, like how to properly rip a head off a prawn and how to properly dunk a biscuit during a morning cuppa. But it was a time spent making scones, visiting gardens and cafes, and watching her giggle whenever they showered her in kisses and told her they loved her, the things that they will miss most. I'd like to just finish with two memories. From my sister Rebecca, she fondly remembers the featherlight jam and cream sponge, and yes, it was magical. Mum would always say, I don't think it's as good as it should be, but it was always amazing. Rebecca was also thankful for the way Mum gave her a love of flowers, even when she sneakily picked waratahs from the national park behind the house. And all I can say is, Mum, so close to 100. For me, you're the person who made me physically, emotionally, and ensured I started on the right path through life. We'll miss you in so many ways, your smile, generosity to all, and willingness to give it a go. Have a happy journey. Happy journey, Mum.
Thank you, Kingsley. It's always a privilege to hear from family and friends at a time like this, and that was an absolute privilege. As you were taking us back there to Inverell and the garden and the waters, it took me back to just the reading from the Psalm, the quiet waters by. Maybe that's just where she kind of got that from, the quiet waters by. And then you taking your hat off in the presence of Her Majesty the Queen, off with his head. And then spilling the beans that Rebecca's older than you. We would never have guessed that. Off with his head again. Margaret Nash, she's going to come and share some personal memories now on Auntie Bonnie. You ready?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bonnie's niece, and my brother Harley is here today as well. Auntie Bonnie always made us feel very special and often told us we were her favourite niece and nephew. It was only later we realised we were her only niece and nephew. I'd like to share some memories which will show what an integral part of the family Bonnie was. In many ways, she was the glue that kept us all together. As has been said before, but I have to follow this a bit, Auntie Bonnie grew up on the family farm in Inverell and was the much-loved sister of Jeff, my father Buzz, and Jack. With no sisters, Bonnie had a very special bond, as Kingsley said, with her cousin Gwen. They grew up together and remained close for nearly 100 years, as Gwen passed away only last year, also aged 99. Bonnie was very close to her sisters-in-law too, my mother Kath and Jack's wife Robin. Coincidentally, none of these four women had sisters, and maybe that's why they had such a strong, loving, sisterly bond, always there for each other through all the ups and downs of life. When the family moved to Sydney in the 1940s, as was said, they bought a milk bar, and a little while later, teenager Elsie Gall came to work there, and she too became part of the family, also much loved by Bonnie. Bonnie was a proud and loving wife, mother and grandmother. I remember the day Amber and Rochelle were born. A little too early for their father Martin to get back to Australia in time, so Auntie Bonnie and I rushed to the hospital, donned in our hospital gowns and caps. We were so excited. And Bonnie was then beckoned in to be with Rebecca to witness the arrival of her beautiful new granddaughters. It was just so special, and she was so excited and proud. And as luck would have it, Gwen was staying with me for a few days from Inverell, so we were all able to celebrate that night together. And it was then we learned that Bonnie, as was said, did not want to be called Grandma or Nana, far too young and independent for that, and to the girls she was always their much-loved Mimi. I have lots of happy memories of Auntie Bonnie. Harley and I shared many birthdays and childhood outings with the Masons, to Taronga Zoo, to the beach, and later, as Kingsley mentioned, the bushwalks down to Martin's Lookout at Springwood from their family home. There was always a warm welcome, huge hugs, smiles and lots of laughs. Auntie Bonnie always made us feel very loved. After all, we were her favourite niece and nephew. As has been said, she was a fabulous cook and excelled with her Victoria sponge, butterfly cake, scones and biscuits, and the piece de resistance, the plum pudding, cooked traditionally in the cloth and lit with brandy. It was always the grand finale to our Christmas lunch. Bonnie she enjoyed nature, and like her mother, she would happily potter in the garden for hours. She also loved the finer things of life, English bone china and silver and crystal, and listening to the opera, and definitely following the rules of etiquette. That was very important. She always kept up with current affairs and was an engaging conversationalist. We had very many long and happy phone chats, as many people did. Bonnie had a great sense of humour and could be very mischievous at times. She loved to share little secrets with Harley and me, and maybe others, and she would take us aside and in a very furtive manner, she'd whisper a revelation which she thought was somewhat scandalous. It was so much fun. However, this could only be done in person because the secrets could not be revealed over the phone, as someone could be listening. Maybe she was thinking back to the telephone party lines in Inverell all those years ago. And speaking of Inverell, we had a family reunion there 15 years ago, which included a visit to the Nash family farm. The current owners, they really welcomed us because there were about 15 of us, I think, and they welcomed us and were eager to hear firsthand what it was like growing up in the house 80 years before. Bonnie was amazing in her recollection of so many details. She even took the time to take Harley and me and show us exactly where Dad's bed was in his boyhood bedroom. That visit was very emotional for us and such a great link to our past. And Gwen's daughter Kerry is here today with her husband Don, and it's great to have you here. And they did a lot to organise that visit for us, so thank you. Unfortunately, Harley and I lost our parents over 30 years ago, and Auntie Bonnie lovingly took on the blended role of mother, aunt and friend to us. She warmly welcomed my husband Barry into the family too. Bonnie will be missed so much, but certainly never forgotten. She will always be loved by her family. We were so lucky to have her in our lives for so long, and Harley and I were privileged to have her as our special aunt. I'm sure Bonnie would want us all to remember her, not with tears in our eyes or sadness in our hearts. She would want us to think of her and smile. Rest in peace, Auntie Bonnie.
There we have it from her favourite niece. Thank you, Margaret. I did think you were going to say there, and she led us to the exact spot where the cowpat was. Oh. From some memories now from and anecdotes from Macquarie Shores Village, we're going to hear from Janice Lawton. Thanks, Janice.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My tribute to Bonnie. Bonnie moved into Macquarie Shores at Dawson North on the 21st of November 2003 and resided there for many years until she reluctantly moved into aged care due to her deteriorating health. She was well liked among fellow residents and always had many a story to tell, especially to John and I, living just one house from her. She would relate stories of when living in Inverell and surrounding towns, of how it was back in the day of the cattle rustlers and what life was like back then compared to today. She was a keen gardener, and we were always amazed as to how long she was able to stay bent over while weeding, considering the age that she was. Whenever she needed help with something, she would stand at her fence line, never calling, and wait until one of us had noticed her. Then ask us if we could either hang her sheets on the line or assist her in any other way. Another time she had just had a new fridge delivered, but she couldn't find the control switch. Any wonder why? It was located at the back of the bottom shelf, almost hidden from sight. John promptly adjusted the temperature control for her, which she was ever so grateful. Bonnie was a very stoic person who stood her ground and let you know it. She once got into a dispute with her neighbour, so she picked up a shovel and she threw dirt all over him. True story. It was quite funny, really, as this neighbour, who stood over 6 foot, was completely taken aback by this little old lady standing in front of him, barely 5 foot tall. We were very sad to see Bonnie leave Macquarie Shores, and she has often been in our thoughts. Rest in peace, Bonnie. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Janice. I kind of missed the beginning of the story. Was there any reason for throwing dirt all over this man, or was it just one of these random hooligan things that these folk get up to? And finally, we hear from Peter. Peter Ellison's got some notes from other people to read out as well. Where are you, Peter? Oh, there you are. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, I've got 4 messages for you, or notes to read out. The first is from Peter Ness, who, when I came in, just said to me, would I mention that he enjoyed all the talks and the teas and the scones you just live over the back of the hill there, didn't you, Pete? So he really enjoyed those times, so he just wanted to get that across. So thanks for that, Peter. Also, a message from Roger and Jenny, who live opposite Bonnie's old home. And they say this: no one is one person to all. I put my glasses on, I could see it better, couldn't I? Yeah. We all see different aspects and complexities. To some, a mum, to others, a gran, to Jenny and I, a friend and a neighbour. It filled our day to see Bonnie pottering in her garden up on the rockery. It brought normality to an otherwise crazy world. We could stop and have a chat. And as you can tell, I'm not doing justice to a great lady. So when in doubt, just look around. She would be so proud of you all. Miss you, Bonnie. Love from Roger and Jen. I also have a message here from Kerry Le Kudinek. Kerry's here. Thank you, Kerry. This is Kerry is the daughter of Bonnie's cousin Gwen, who we were talking, Gwen Wilkins, who was Gwen Moore. So thoughts of Bonnie Nash and Gwen Moore Wilkins. Now, Bonnie and Gwen were first cousins, but most of all, they were great mates. Gwen, who passed away last year, was 4 months older than Bonnie, and she was also 99 years old. Gwen often talked of times visiting the Nashes at their property Prospect near Elsmore at Easter time and Christmas, and of her and Bonnie pretending Santa was real, because Bonnie's little brother Jack still believed in Santa. Bonnie talked of her visits to the moors at the property Glen Coe, also near Elsmore, which is near Inverell, of the lovely long veranda with its beautiful grapevines, which produced delicious grapes, and of swimming in the river and horse riding. In the 1940s, the Nash family, along with the Moores, moved from Elsmore to Sydney. When Gwen married in 1946, Bonnie was one of her bridesmaids, and then Gwen moved back to Inverell when Bonnie and Fred were to be married. She was unable to attend their wedding as her first baby was almost due. Although for most of their adult lives they lived long distances apart, the telephone often ran hot, and whenever they met, it was as if they'd only seen each other the day before. When Gwen visited Bonnie at Macquarie Shores, they would talk for hours and hours, often till long past midnight. Then Gwen would wake at 3 or 4 in the morning to Bonnie saying, Gwen, are you awake? I've made a cup of tea. And then they would chat again for hours. Oh, yeah. A highlight for Gwen was when Margaret and Harley organised for her to be a surprise guest at Bonnie's 80th birthday party, which was also a welcome home for Kingsley and Laura Lee. A great time for them both. There were many wonderful times spent together and great memories for us all to reflect on at this farewell of a very special and dear cousin. Now, Bonnie Nash and my mother, Margaret Eliason, they were mates. They came from different ends of the earth. But when Bonnie Nash rode her horse to the post office in Inverell, Margaret Eliason, or Woodland as she was then, was riding the number 96 bus around the Isle of Dogs. The Isle of Dogs, if you look on a map of London, is that U shape in the Thames. And I shared a house with Kingsley and Rebecca in the 1980s. And I'm still in therapy. But that's okay. I'm getting there, you know. I'm getting there. And my mother visited Australia in the late 80s. And Bonnie and Margaret met, and they became real fast friends, great mates. And I can remember Fred driving us around up on the Central Coast, around the beaches on a day out. Yeah, I remember that day. Fred passed away in 1991. And in 93, as Kingsley said, Bonnie went to the UK. And she went to places that she must have dreamt about all those years ago when she was on the horse. She even saw the Queen and Prince Philip at a Buckingham Palace garden party. Can you believe that? That was once again arranged by Kingsley. However he did that, I have no idea. She stayed with Margaret, my mum, and she also stayed with Catherine Tattershaw, which is my wife's mum, in Surrey. So she stayed in Essex and she stayed in Surrey, so whatever, yeah. And Bonnie and Margaret went on a 5-day tour of Ireland together. So if you see any pictures of that, they just got on so well and they had a great time together. I just know they did. And when Fred passed away in 91, my mother Margaret sent her a letter of condolence, and I'd like to read it to you. And this is what it says. Dear Bonnie, g'day. It's me, Pommy Margaret. I wish to express my deepest sympathy at this sad time. So sorry to hear about Fred. I received a letter from Peter, and he explained to me how ill Fred was. And then seemed to be getting better. And when Kingsley left for England, it just happens like that. But I know that you have a loving family behind you, which is a great help. I do feel for you, having had experience of the same. Time is a great healer, so keep your pecker up, mate. Think of the good times that you spent together. That is how I get by. It's not easy, it's a hard world at times, but we survive. I trust Rebecca and Martin are well and do not have to spend too much time apart, although I know it's expected with service life. My kind regards to them. As you may know, Peter has moved from Blues Point Road and has acquired a bedsit. Says he's quite happy there and he has another girlfriend. My mind boggles with him. I guess you must have the same problem with Kingsley. That's not what she's talking about. They have a different outlook on life. But I'm sure they deserve the best. However, Bonnie, my thoughts go with you. Trust you keep well. Take care. My regards to your folks. All the best. With lots of love. Rest in peace, Bonnie.
Thank you to all of those who contributed, and thank you, Peter. It's quite an accent you've got there. Imagine getting a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, "Are you awake?" Well, I am now. It's terrific. Thank you, all of you, for sharing these lovely memories and trying to bring all that into 99 years, which of course is impossible. But we do celebrate her 99 years and celebrate her life in our own. I wonder what the pictures, I've not seen these, so I wonder what the pictures are going to be like. I'm looking forward to see these. These are going to be spectacular, I'm quite sure. Going back to a different age, no doubt. We're going to see something of Bonnie's life then in picture as we continue to celebrate her life. Something of Bonnie's life in picture.
You'll remember me when the west wind moves among the fields of barley. You can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. So she took her love for to gaze a while among the fields of barley. In his arms she fell as her hair came down among the fields of gold. Will you stay with me? Will you be my love? of barley. And you can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. I never made promises lightly, and there have been some that I've broken, but I swear in the days still left we'll walk in fields of gold. We'll walk in fields of gold. I never made promises lightly, and there have been some that I've broken, but I swear in the days still left we'll walk in fields of gold. We'll walk in fields of gold. Many years have passed since those summer days among the fields of barley. See the children run as the sun goes down, as you lie in fields of gold. You remember me when the west wind moves among the fields of barley. You can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. You remember me when the west wind moves among the fields of barley. You can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. So she took her love for to gaze a while among the fields of barley. In his arms she fell as her hair came down among the fields of gold. Will you stay with me? Will you be my love among the fields of barley? And you
Thank you for that. That was every bit as special as I and probably we thought it would be. Thank you so much for that. I was just thinking of the picture of seeing her on the mountain and that fairly modern song, You Raise Me Up, so that I could stand on mountains. It's rather fitting. You raise me up to be more than I can be. Thank you for delving into your photo albums and sharing those with us. What about that wedding dress and that wedding photo? Absolute classic. Thank you for that. I'm actually not sure if I'm meant to be announcing this, but here goes. You're invited to Kingsley's house. I don't know if everyone knows this, but you're invited to Kingsley's place for refreshment after the service. If you're able to join the family there, you'll be made most welcome, says he. If you'd like to join in, you're welcome to do so as we say the words of the Lord's Prayer. If you'd like to join in, you're welcome. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. The first of the readings there was one that Bonnie had wanted to be included in the services, and this is one that I thought would be most fitting for Bonnie, just in her character, her style, her life. It's an old piece, this one, from St. Francis of Assisi. Make me a channel of your peace. Seems to be something that she kind of lived by. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, may I bring faith. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. And where there's darkness, let me bring light. And where there's sadness, may I bring joy. O Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, or to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving to all others that we receive, and in dying that we are born to eternal life. Make me a channel of your peace. I'm not sure if you're all going to come to the graveside, but I'll include the words of committal here in case there are any of you who will not be at the graveside. For this we always stand in honour and in tribute. So if you're able, would you please be upstanding? From the prophecy of Jeremiah, I will turn their mourning into gladness. I will give them comfort and joy instead of sorrow. Here we have come to remember and to celebrate Bonnie's life, to celebrate her life in our own, that ours is all the better for ever having had her in it. We celebrate that some of you shared her gift of life. And now we farewell her with words of go in peace. We commend you into the hands of God till we meet again. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Bonnie, go in peace. And of course, she'd be more concerned this day with your peace than with her own, that you would go in peace. I leave with you then these words of a Celtic blessing. Deep peace of the shining star to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of warm, assuring, comforting love to you. Comforting love that you may leave here in peace. Go in peace. Time to say goodbye.
Quando sono sola sogno l'orizzonte mancano le parole. Sì, lo so che non c'è luce in una stanza quando manca il sole. Se non ci sei tu con me sì.
sei lontana, sogno all'orizzonte, manca le parole. E io sì lo so che sei con me, tu mia luna, tu sei qui con me. Mio sole, tu sei qui con me,